What real life serving people that
social welfare.
we can start. People can say, then I'll just
So sorry, we got up, the whole session was so late. That one, Swami. Now people will come because there were a whole bunch of people in that session we just got over. So if you don't mind 2-3 minutes, I think many people will drift in. We were all stuck in that. That was also very urban, that session.
What is it called? What is it called?
Swami, the mapping program for habitations. So
it is in rural areas.
yeah, but it is very urban in the sense it was about habitation. So a lot of people were there, and it was quite chock-a-block because lots of state presentations from them.
Are you picking up the new towns which are fast coming up like Tirupur, Agra, Bhubaneswar? Is something about Ludhiana? Is something working on those stuff?
Yeah, so some of the
They're
work.
growing at 8 to 9%, right? In addition to our major towns, 9 towns. These towns are growing very fast.
In terms of-
Surat, Baroda, and Gujarat, that's good.
In terms of land records, most of them have a record, but the extension records maybe, so some states are working on it. So Karnataka was talking about how they are going beyond this Swamitra program.
This is Mohan Batarata, the Tamil Nadu has done excellent work in women's hostels under this scheme. That would be interesting.
So this was mostly about the mapping side. There is a separate, I think some session, Naksha has also been discussed, I'm not sure when it's there. I can't keep track of it. What is happening? 6 program in parallel. आपका presentation है आप उधर बैठो.
हाँ सर.
Is that Pradeep?
Yes, that's Pradeep.
Oh, wonderful. Please come. Welcome. Yeah, welcome. We are waiting for you.
We were also in the Swamitra session. Everyone is stuck in Swamitra.
It's actually such
It was very rude to get up and walk out.
No, but it's also very good work done in that. It's wonderful.
So in the that we have figures.
I'm just waiting for people to come.
Yeah.
We just wait for some more people to come. And then I'll just see. Decide if you want to wait a couple of minutes or you want to start. I will check my phone.
Very good afternoon, friends. I think this is a very interesting session on reimagining land and development through the lens of national housing conditions. We have a very distinguished panel here. Sejal is a very distinguished professor of ACCEPT, and she's done a lot of work on assessing what is really going on the ground in these housing missions. We have Bhavin Patel from the government of Gujarat. He's one of our star performers. He's done very good work in this field. And I think he's got a lot of good things to share with you all. Shishir comes from Madhya Pradesh and looks after the housing missions there. And we have Pradeep from Odisha who looks after this project. I have just 3-4 points to at the start. I think the panelists would do well to remember that there is a huge inequity in the country. If you look at the national income, per capita income, we speak of 5 trillion economy and things like that. If you take away the top 10% of the population, our per capita income falls to almost $1,300, which is lower than sub-Saharan Africa. So that's the condition of the people. That means if you take away about 150 million people at the top, the remaining people, 1,300 million people, are living a very, very poor life. 1,000 million have no capacity to purchase anything. They are just surviving because of the government food doles and other doles. So it's a huge load which you have to cater to. In fact, many people say it's rising India for a few, but ongoing deprivation for a large India. It looks quite good. So in that context, this housing mission that the work which has been done by the states becomes very, very important, because roti kapda makan is the most important component. The other components can be catered to, but not the makan. We have some very interesting and impressive reforms, which is appreciated. I mean, we've done about 1.22 crore houses per sanction in all, under the different components. And 96 lakhs, I'm told, are already completed, and about 1.14 in all are in various processes of completion. The total amount of 8 lakh crore was spent. 8 lakh crore out of the government of India chipped in 2 lakh crores. So that is very impressive. And I want the panelists today, the distinguished panelists today, to remember the goals of this discussion. Alright, I'll highlight that before you start. So I would like you to focus on these goals. Basically what we are looking at, what is the next phase of reforms? What is the next phase of reforms to meet this 1,000 million people's needs, various needs, especially housing? What can we do for that? You have to, I would like the panelists to focus on what are the land ownership issues, documentation, marketing, records, all those issues. Some advice, some thoughts on that from the audience as well as from the panelists would be very useful. Considering that 1,000 million people just don't have anything, what do we do with the beneficiary contribution gap? I think that's a very well thought out question by the organizers. Beneficiary contribution gap, we have to think of something because that's what is holding up many projects because the beneficiaries just can't get their contribution in. They're like being what I just mentioned, 1,000 million people having nothing, no purchasing power. The third one is also very interesting. There is this technology submission which brings the best practices from the country at one place, which is open to all the states. How do we ensure that the learnings from that mission? Gemawat was just saying, she was just saying that the done some excellent work on mental health, nursing for women, especially near Apple factories and all. So how do we ensure that those lessons are taken on board when we do the next phase of the work? And the last point is, what are the self-sustaining options? Having been a municipal coach myself for 3 years in Rajkot, I think there's a huge possibility of cornering the land value by the government. That's government's right to corner the appreciation in land value once urbanization takes place and use it for a good purpose for this component of the population. There's a lot of work done by SEPT. Sejal was telling me yesterday, if the ECRs were properly managed and adapted, a lot more land could be available. A lot more land could be available. There are unnecessary margins in poor areas where already land is so limited. And there's some excellent case studies on how if the margins were suitably adapted, modified, a lot more land would be available for the poor. What steps can be taken to ensure that this scheme reaches the poorest of the poor? So rather than highlighting, I know all of you have been involved here because you've done outstanding work. That goes without saying. Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, you've done outstanding work, and Sejaban, of course, is the key person in analyzing the work done. So focus on these 4 goals, which I just mentioned. That's the goal of this group. So kindly focus on these goals. With this, I have the pleasure of inviting my teacher, Professor Dr. Sejal Patel, to enlighten us. She's been a really big guide to me when I was chairman there. I learned a lot from her to talk about the issue and enlighten the house. Yes. So what we'll do is about 10 to 12 minutes each participant, each panelist, and then you can ask some questions for next 2-3 minutes and then the next one. Is that okay with everybody? Yes. Okay, let's go. Then over to you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words.
Are we coming in the way? Can you see the board? Yes, we can. Okay. Go ahead.
Your kind words, sir. And of course, so vividly setting the context and all of that. I would like to take you forward. Let us look at what are the national initiatives for this affordable housing and what have been some of the local implementations. With the specific,
Sure.
The specific example of Ahmedabad, what has been happening in India. So, what the government of India has done is simultaneously initiated different types of instruments to facilitate and meet both housing need and housing demand. By 2035, there is likely estimate that about 25 million housing need, 25 million houses, and a demand of almost 95 million houses. So there is a need for the government to be both a provider of housing, where housing is thought of as a welfare good, but also as an enabler of the market, where housing is thought of as a private good and the markets are incentivized to augment the supply and through lowering the some of the rates and barriers to the market. So with this in the focus to meet housing need and demand, where housing is a welfare good and a private good, the Government of India has initiated simultaneously two types of instruments. One is incentives to supply mechanisms by Ministry of Finance. And second is subsidy to consumer and supply mechanism by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs through PMAY program. To match with this, there are state initiatives and local implementation, and I will just take one city's example to see how this is converging. So if we see, so if you can see here, these are the policy instruments by both Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. If you see housing as a ladder, the need is in the lower two rungs of the ladder, EWS and NRT. It's a need because they are not able to meet the cost, continue to live in substandard housing, and the market doesn't cater for them. To help them address the housing shortage there or the need, the MoHUA introduced the PMAY program with a focus of 1 crore 12 lakh houses. And this was because, if you remember, Kundu Committee and their estimate of housing shortage in India in 2012, it was 18 million. And in response to that, MoHUA first started with a target of 20 million, but then later on changed it to 1 crore, 11 million per PMAY. So this is how the national target was set up for PMAY. Beneficiary-led construction, affordable housing in partnership, credit-linked subsidy, in-situ slum redevelopment, and also the ARLC, which was added post-COVID. These are the 5 verticals. I think some states give it the experience of each of the verticals. But at the same time, what nationally in most of the cities experience was that there was a huge demand and supply gap for the families who were LIG, LMIG 1. Up to family annual income of around 12 lakhs. Even then, the market was not catering the housing that they sought because there were huge price, there were risks to them, and there were also lower margins. To incentivize this supply, Ministry of Finance has introduced 4 very important initiatives. One, income tax exemption under Section 80 IBA for the supply mechanism, so that there is no income tax to be paid for such kind of housing which is created. GST reduction to such consumers of such a housing, and then each one has a definition. In most of this, the housing price has to be 45 lakhs and size has to be between 60 to 90 square meter. Then infrastructure status, in order to improve access to finance for supply mechanisms and to consumer, housing has been also given infrastructure status, affordable housing. It means that the supply mechanism will be able to access external commercial borrowing the way a LRT or a MRTS developer could also do from external markets, non-domestic markets. And housing has also been given priority sector lending status, which would mean banks have to, out of the total allocation, 40% of the allocation of funds by banks and NBFC has to be for priority sector lending, and housing is going to be one of them, which means that they have to give construction finance and home loans to the supply mechanisms. So there are 2-pronged approaches. One, to allow the markets to meet the huge housing demand and to also meet the huge housing need through provisionary mechanism. So this is a two-pronged approach which is being taken, enabling the markets and directly providing support to those families which are not catered by the markets. This is a very sort of a two-pronged approach is really work, and I will show you in some cases how this convergence is happening. So this is just to quickly show income tax exemption under EPIBA. Who does it? What is an affordable project of this? Price ceiling has to be 45 lakhs. Size has to be 60 to 90 square meter. And if a developer does such a project, they don't have to pay any income tax. Of course, in the first project, they have to pay what is MAT. And then in the next project, they will get a rebate of the MAT. So that is the whole mechanism. This has really spurred 2 BHK units, supply of 2 BHK units within 45 lakhs income, price. Of course, there are some, this price is now not very valid. It is now, there is also a lot of push for this to be increased slightly to 60 lakhs. But typically, this is to augment the supply of 1 and 2 bedroom hall kitchen housing where there was a huge gap between the demand and supply. Reduction in goods and services tax. Again, same price, 45 lakhs, price ceiling. And here the GST has been reduced from 5% to 1%. Again, this is also with the view, and the sizes are the same. All of this by Ministry of Finance. So this also sort of incentivizes the supply mechanism. Infrastructure status to affordable housing projects. This is being initiated by Ministry of Finance again. And they can do external commercial borrowing, provided the project all units are less than 60 square meter and 50% of the total, 60% of the total market area is used for such units. It means that supply mechanisms can actually go to Singapore or Hong Kong and actually do external commercial borrowing for such a market. And there is a complex way to which this can be accessed via RBI and NHB, but this has been some project developers have now been able to access this, and as a result, because of lower access to construction finance, overall, they are able to lower the price of the housing. The last is inclusion by RBI, Reserve Bank of India, inclusion of affordable housing as a priority sector lending, so that there can be easy access to home loan and construction finance for such projects. Here also, in most of this, the size of the unit for such a project is kept at 60 square meter. And so it is a different target group. It is not an absolute EWS or LIS. It is actually a different target group, but for that target group also there was low supply. And to augment the supply, this instruments have been put in place. Now let's look at what is happening when it comes to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Target of 1.18 crores, so 11 million about. 4 verticals, affordable housing in partnership, which was there. Then beneficiary-led construction, where families could build on their own plot, a unit, and then credit-linked subsidy, where the government was not in the picture, directly for each of the family to buy their own house. They were, once they were approved, the bank would give them interest subsidy for the home loan, provided they were an EWS farmer. In some states like in Gujarat, the EHM, coming by, I think, they extended the credit-linked subsidy to also LIG, MIG 1 and MIG 2. And so they actually, there was no funding for this from Government of India, but the state said that they will be actually funding this subsidy. So this was the addition that the state did under credit-linked subsidy. Now, while this is at the national level, at the state level this is matched because it has to be implemented at the state level. Now, as I said, there are two-pronged approach, a national enabling mechanism and a provisionary mechanism. This is what you see. 18 states have their own affordable housing policy to implement the PMAY's affordable housing vertical. And 5 states have both enabling policy and also provisionary policy in place, and Gujarat is one of them. So for us, affordable housing projects are implemented through MMGY, Mukhyamantri Gru Yojana, where the housing is treated as a welfare good, but at the same time, the market-based affordable housing is initiated through RAH regulations within DCR. I'll show you how that pans out. So, there are some states which have both the policies in place.
And this is how it is getting implemented, MMGY and its experiences. And then I'll now come very specifically to the context of residential affordable housing zone. But what is interesting is how the developers are able to converge the incentives of the national government and the RAH to bring and to sort of implement, affordable housing projects, more for LIG and middle income group, in the context of the residential affordable housing zone in Ahmedabad. Our study shows that after it was announced in the development plan of the city in 2012, when we did this we actually used the data from DERA to see what projects were implemented, and we found that there were about 200 projects in different stages of implementation, and interestingly, 20% were one room kitchen and one bedroom kitchen units, which were coming up in this area, but not necessarily in the price range of that would be affordable to EWS and LIG, but that was the supply. And the developers could do by converging with the national incentives also. And this has been the overall markets which emerged in the RAF zone, and the different kind of target groups which were there. What we found in the area of Vastral and Nikko, the best supply was coming up, and it actually, without any subsidy, the markets could cater 1 BHK to EWS families without any subsidy, just because the developers were able to leverage their owned land and also take the incentives under the Government of India's policy instruments. So this has been overall experience and some case studies to share. This is one such project in the Western Ahmedabad, Southwest, where the developer has interestingly converged RH regulations benefits with 80 IBA, reduction in GST, and also for their consumers link them to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana's credit link subsidy. So they are able to converge the bits and all the instruments which are being offered, so that overall there is an affordability for the end user, and they are able to. So supplier is able to in the price range of 20 lakhs typically the profit margins are low, but the developers are able to supply because we are able to convert all of these policy instruments that are available there. So this is supply side incentives. They take incentive under GDCR, under section 80 IBA, and the kind of what does it translate into their overall investment, and then demand side incentives. What does it really mean? Both when they look at PMAY credit link subsidy and then also reduction in GST which goes to the consumer. So this is how convergence is happening at the local level between the various instruments which have been initiated by the Government of India, and this is how I'm sure it is also happening in other cities as well. So some other examples of, I'll stop here. I'm saying my key takeaway is that housing is both a huge need and a huge demand in this country, and which requires both the state to be a provider to meet the huge need, and this is done typically through PMAY 1 and now PMAY 2, and at the same time it's a huge demand, and a large section of the society where they have some affordability but market is not catering for them. The demand has to be also, the markets have to be enabled to meet the demand, and so that's why this dual and multi-pronged policy instruments are put in place to make this happen now, so that both the need and the demand can be taken. I'll stop.
Thank you, Professor Sejan. Any questions?
Maybe we should go through all the presentation that has kindly gets squeezed.
This particular, afterwards we'll, you say.
I just wanted to ask, is there a tendency, like something I saw in Mumbai, I don't know if it applies everywhere, is there a tendency, because the limit is like 45 lakhs, so is there a tendency to kind of build housing that is closer to the upper limit rather than towards the lower limit? And I see that as a, in Mumbai, like you see Mada is building, a lot of the homes end up being like 60 lakhs or something like that, which even for a 6 to 7 lakh home is not affordable necessarily with the family and everything. So just wanted to understand, like, how do you also kind of, I know with the RAH rules, like it allows multiple, but how can this incentives also allow for like incentivize developers to build for slightly lower, like not reach the upper limit, always aim for the upper limit?
Yeah, thanks. It's a very good question. The incentive-based mechanism means the developers will stop below, at a point and not below that. So the lowest they've gone is a supply of 20 lakh price of 20 lakh, which means that a price to income ratio of 4 is affordable to families whose incomes are 5 lakh. Right? That's above EWS. So through the incentive-based mechanism, the markets will not be able to supply to the poorest of the poor. And that is why you need to also have the subsidy-based instruments, and that is where PMAY comes in. So both, like as I say, the need and the demand needs to be equally targeted at the same time, rather than only the need or only the demand.
I just have a follow-up question. Maybe. Ma'am, but what's something that I remember, I think Indian Institute of Human Settlements did a study of PMAY data, and what they see is in urban areas, the CLSS subsidies are, compared to DLC and others, the CLSS subsidies have the lowest like distribution as far as they, like compared to a lot of the other incentives. So in urban areas where maybe a BLC model of financing may not work, like is there a maybe a problem where the credit link subsidies, because I also worked in housing finance for years, and like the credit link subsidy is something that our bank was like, okay, we will not promote that much because that doesn't come on time or something like that. So like there are also these policy instruments which may be functional in reality, but like even like private institutions who are offering that are like hesitant to promote that sometimes. So like I don't know if that is a question.
So nationally, out of 1 crore, so 11.8 million that's what I talked about, I think 30% is credit linked subsidy. And different states have done differently in each of this. For instance, when it comes to beneficiary-led construction, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Andhra, Telangana, they have done well. Gujarat, maybe, and Madhya Pradesh. But when it comes to credit linked subsidy, Gujarat and some other states have done well. And there the state is not even in the picture. It's directly between GUDCO and SBI as Central Nodal Agency, approving the applicants, the total numbers, and the HFCs and banks. So I think, I found in fact the credit linked subsidy is working well, but you are right. In the initial year, there was a lot of problem in getting the file moving and getting it to a stage where it gets approved. So for the first 2-3 years, there's a lot of negative sentiment. But after they introduced CLAP, the CLAP did the change.
I think, just one second.
Thank you so much. I'm Christian from Kenya, and I'm so interested in the presentation. The only thing I'm trying to learn out of Kenya, we have a similar program Thank you very much. I'm Wilson, Nigerian from Kenya. I'm a lecturer at the university. And I said that I'm very interested in the study, but there are things I want to find out. Like we have a similar program in Kenya, that's comparison. I don't know how it's working in India. Then who, it is the people who are working, who are taxed to sustain this project. Anybody who is employed by the government, they pay money. I don't know how the financing model in India is working. Thank you very much.
Can you repeat your question?
My question is,
My friend, why don't you come a little nearer to us?
Okay.
Sorry.
I was saying, we have a similar program in Kenya of affordable housing, and apparently, like you guys, India is far ahead of us. But I'm just concerned about, is it a compulsory to provide housing, affordable housing to the poor, or is it voluntary? Some people cannot afford, right? Like in Kenya, it's like comparison. Now the problem in Kenya is that the funding is through taxation of anybody who is employed. Like personally, I have a house, but the government is still taxing me for affordable housing. I just don't know what is the experience in India. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a voluntary. It is for when it is incentive based, thank you. When it is incentive based, it is voluntary for the developers, supply mechanism to decide where and in what specific context they want to invest into this. If they do invest into such a project, they will have to make sure that the price of all the units are less than this amount so that they don't pay any tax. And the size of units are smaller than this so that they get all the incentives. But it is voluntary. So it's not that anybody everybody must do it. But if they do it, they get this incentives. That's the idea of the incentive based. It is matched further by the inclusionary zoning and regulation. Again, where they say, if you follow this size, you will get this incentive in zoning, and again, it's voluntary. So, and the experience has been fairly good. The more liberal you get in this context, the less will be non-compliance by the markets. The more tight and rigid, systems and regulations you will have, the experience has shown it does not work. Wherever it is compulsory for developers to provide, it is not worked. So that's why here there is a slightly different and more liberal approach.
Excellent. Any other?
You are doing that
You were taking
agency of regulation.
So what we have seen in the past few years, that is especially post-COVID, is that the price of properties, especially in the tier 1 cities, are growing so much. And when you look at the supply of units, whether by the private developers, nothing comes in the less than 45 lakh segment. So it is not possible to provide any unit in that segment, even though they keep it in the 300 square feet or 600 square feet size. So when we make the size as the defining factor, what happens is a 600 square feet unit may be provided, but then it comes at a much higher price. So what we have seen through data in the last 5 years is that the supply of units in the less than 45 lakh segment is actually declining. It is not increasing. So that is one of the things that we need to address, because otherwise it may not be possible for us to meet that goal that we are, a target that we have set.
Yeah. So
what are the lessons for this thing from the
So I have 3-4 takeaways here. Sir, the NERENCO president has been also saying this for some time, that 45 lakhs is not working for 5 cities. NCR, MMR, Chennai, Bangalore, and Kolkata and Ahmedabad is still working. But these larger
Officer, you used to visit so many times. One of the former DG in other branch used to visit to my court to what shall I do. So they are moving in the paper but not land. So where is land? Where is property? So very difficult. Land record are so your possession and your land title never know. Where you want the land is for check to right the land and multiple transactions. So the informal layout are playing havoc in providing affordable housing. At the same time, you see 3 BHK, 2 BHK housing are on good demand because who is the IT and biotechnology, they are starting in Bangalore or the massive demand, as Madam said. 3 BHK, 2 BHK, they are very steady demand. But getting land for the builder is a very tricky issue. Now they are worried about the land records, and we have not properly updated land records. It is still in limbo, sir, in certain process, many around 50% villages in Bhubaneswar jurisdiction, they are yet to finalize the land record service certificate. So it is transitory phase. So no builder, no real estate company, they are taking risk to invest the land. So there is some plotted housing like general department, gold settlement, the housing schemes can given bigger size, 10,000, 5,000 schemes. So what we find is vertical things are coming out. So but these are very costly, for serious. So middle class people are buying. This is really hot. They are in hot supply. One issue now the government has taken up again issues on land, town plan scheme. So what our state government is doing, that they motivate people to farm the land, let us have a model or other issues. We should take down the town plan scheme, we will provide more plant amenity so that in this report that you do, so you will go for the housing. So that is now doing well. 4 villages, they have already completing the town plan scheme. I hope that will provide housing. The other side, this old town,
Is it similar to the Gujarat County?
yes sir, similar to Gujarat town. So people are accepting. Initially they were raising, you have 5,000 square feet plot, you will reduce to 2,500, 2,000, 2,000, not accept. 40% size will reduce. So we have to provide them infrastructure. So that is there. The main issue that highlights is about that. When government will have to go ahead with further Jaga mission, it got so many hours, so many attractions because of non-availability of land. The small size of slums, sometimes in government quarter, residential quarter, it's not very good for a developer to invest and raise the apartment, small size apartment for the person. So stringency in regulation has been reduced. So initially, it's a very interesting development we have taken because of stringency in supply of housing. So many people, this plotted houses can have 18 feet road, wide road, 18 feet and 16 feet. So the BD had a wide road that always will provide 20 feet or 30 feet road, will never give you a layout approval. So most of the private builders, they would sell their from land. So if you wait on 2 years, they went to High Court. High Court failed to do justice. You should see our earlier experience in the grounding, there is no drainage and no sewage facility, only electric plant. We want to provide a good road to habitable. But now the same conditions will be there. So small houses will be built, so bigger houses will not be built, so that 18 feet or 16 feet road, informal roads will be there. So some middle ground, some will be taken up so that because they have already sold the land, nobody is going to make a factory road. So that is problem. Informality and some adjustment is being taken up to address the stringency. Otherwise, if you want, thousands of plots are all 12 road, 16 feet road. It is just like less than village gully, village road. So that is creating problem. So at a time we did, nobody could come to begin to enforce the plotted land scheme. That is costly, but you want to build a house immediately. Our enforcement officer, so many cases we good cases of our inside development of the land, so last we failed to provide stringent action. So very difficult to stop. And they go on selling the land, and because they are used to allow the conversion of agricultural land to housing, ready for housing. Hence, when people they don't bother about road, then manage their informally, they go together, doing this, we have to pull us are available to bring and make roads also. They overly try to make a informal road and do the housing schemes. They don't bother on the state, but the state later on the BMC have stepped into after all they have to pay housing, they are holding cash, in fact they are also getting water logging. So BMC has again done, okay, you have not the housing, 12 feet, 62 feet, you don't bother, again you are raising housing. So we'll take over your housing, we will just agree at the head of the land for registered site, we provide the road, and the remaining protected housing, you do construction. And the plans are not a problem for those by the records, these land records are there. So anyway, the central is with all our plans.
It's amazing. I started my working life in Bhubaneswar way back in 1978. And Bhubaneswar used to be a small town. And I went there recently. It's a sprawling city. So obviously a lot of work has gone into making it what it is today. But what you're saying is an issue of many places. It's a daily land and huge amount of land.
Yes, sir, this Lord Lingaraj and
How much land are you talking of?
it's not so much huge, around 20% or so is daily land, that whole town. It's not
How many acres or acres are you talking of?
that absolute estimate I don't have. But this is an old town people, it's Purana Bhubaneswar. You have some plants, small town. That is expanding to rural areas, buying of the land, informal. People have developed their own roads, no planning now, but still housing is boom, massive development. Everybody goes purchasing it land as a title road, some records are existing. So in other areas, the state is unable to expand, it will provide enough, except the affordable housing. This Jaga Mission, state is ready to help, but you need that. So all the informality is dominating in housing supply.
Okay, so we go to from Pradeep, we go to Madhya Pradesh, and can I request Shishir Imamit to give us a vignette of what's going on?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have very recently joined as Mission Director of Pradhan Mantri Awas in Madhya Pradesh. So I have much to learn from the esteemed panelists over here. Little less to share, but still Madhya Pradesh has had a very good journey in the first phase of Pradhan Mantri Awas. We have been among the top 3 leading states. So if you permit, sir, I'll just share a brief presentation.
You have 10 minutes.
I'll probably take less than a minute. These are the basic facts which Selina has already covered. Pradhan Mantri Awas was originally intended to 2022, but has been extended in December 2023. These were the components which were talked about. The prominent component which Madhya Pradesh led in was beneficiary-led construction. In this component, we constructed over around 7 lakh dwelling units. In affordable housing in partnership, Madhya Pradesh constructed around 50,000 dwelling units. In credit-linked subsidy scheme, we were able to impart the benefits to around 1.75 lakh families. One of the goals which Chairperson Sir has had started with was ensuring the titling of land. In Madhya Pradesh, we have dealt with it very well. We have provided for free of premium pattas to many beneficiaries by usage of various schemes, such as our Patta Dhati Adhiniyam, which caters to those individuals who are EWS as per the scheme and who are landowners. Also, in a landmark decision by our cabinet, due to non-availability of documents, several times people, even those who have been dwelling there for generations, do not have valid documentation. So, our cabinet enabled the use of property tax for a certain number of years to be qualified for the purposes of Pradhan Mantri Awas BLC component. Those who were living in untenable lands, which could have been used for housing projects like representative from Odisha had also mentioned about those certain patches of land which couldn't have been used for housing projects. Though the people were rehabilitated to tenable lands, Abadi was given, and in that Abadi land, individual titles were given. This caters to the urban schemes. Likewise, in rural sector, like Swamitva scheme was discussed, in each and every Gram Panchayat of Madhya Pradesh, with the collaboration of Panchayati Raj Department and Revenue Department, drone survey was carried out, survey was done, and individual land titles have been given in the Abadi land of Gram Panchayat region, which basically conclusively gives the title. It hasn't been done in urban areas yet due to various factors, but caters to the issue in rural areas. Similarly, in the AHP model, where the government allotted free of at no premium some land for construction of AHP units, which were cross-subsidized. The EWS units were cross-subsidized with the LIG and MIG ones. I'm pretty sure the model is state as in Gujarat also. But what was done to ensure the viability was that beneficiaries were classified into slum and non-slum. And since our priority was to eradicate slums and to redevelop them, the slum beneficiaries were capped at only 2 lakh rupees their beneficiary share. And for non-slum, it was capped at no profit, no loss. So perhaps an AHP dwelling unit, according to site, costed around 8 to 10 lakhs. For slum beneficiaries, we just took 2 lakhs and the state was cross-subsidized by government. And for the others, the rest was paid by the beneficiary. Also, the convergence by other government schemes such as Amrut, such as Vishesh Nidhi, such as Ashray Shulk was done to ensure that the AHP sites were more viable. Also, another important point was beneficiary selection and ensuring that they have the financial capacity to be a part of this. And those who did not have, the state made a provision of a tripartite agreement where the ULB was a guarantor of the remaining beneficiary share, which was to be submitted by the government. Similarly, some other initiatives were that whenever anti-encroachment drives were made by districts or government at large, those encumbrance-free lands were first prioritized for dwelling units for EWS. This has been done in the phase 1 of Pradhan Mantri Awas. What we are now looking forward towards is, as per the new guidelines, the ARH model, we look forward to learning about it also more, but the ARH model and affordable housing in partnership in private is which needs to be more worked about. Madhya Pradesh has come up with an integrated township policy last year, this year itself, where the pooling of land is being done in the ULB area, in the planning area, and semi-urban areas also, where according to different categories of cities, different pooling sizes of land, contiguous lands of say 10 hectare, 20 hectare and 40 hectares, according to the different categories, the provision has been made in the integrated township policy, where the private developers will be incentivized and facilitated by the government. Needless to say, the policy has been kept in mind to ensure the connectivity, the logistic routes, the livelihood possibilities of the being planned residential units. These are just some of the other benefits which Madhya Pradesh had given, like additional subsidy for construction workers, etc. These are the figures which I had mentioned earlier. Like I would like to reiterate that in BLC, completion is more than 92%, with having completed around 6.6 lakhs of dwelling units, with the completion rate percentage being highest in the state. These were the awards presented to Madhya Pradesh for its performance. Our way forward is we are working on a new housing policy. Our previous habitat policy was envisaged in 2007. Since then, Pradhan Mantri Awas has been launched, and we also acknowledge the fact that there, according to studies, Madhya Pradesh by 2030 would be needing around 50 lakh dwelling units in urban areas. That all can't be taken care of by the government sector, by Pradhan Mantri Awas. Market forces need to be linked with. We are incorporating those things in the policy which we are going to come up with probably next month or latest by January. This is
Thank you, Shishir. Excellent. The first shock which I got vis-a-vis Madhya Pradesh was Madhya Pradesh producing more wheat than Punjab. And I think the same trend of doing very well in other areas is continuing, as we saw in the housing project as well. Shall we hear of this?
One movie, I know, which was covered in
Okay, with this we move to the host state. I guess Bhavin, who's one of our most experienced officers on this project.
Thank you so much. Basically, most of Gujarat performers are covered in the current PPT. So I'm not पकाता नहीं हूँ आपको ज़्यादा. मैं मूवी के थ्रू आपको जितना भी हुआ है गुजरात के अंदर what we can do and how to do, वो मैं आपको दिखा रहा हूँ.
Four walls and a roof over our head. Home. Not just any house. Our own home. It's more than just four walls and a roof over our head. It's a place where we play, love, cry, learn, and grow. It's one of the topmost necessity, right in line with food, clothing, and employment. But above all, it is the only place in the world that makes us feel safe. That is why, in the year 2015, Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi took a giant leap towards gifting this security to every Indian by kickstarting the most ambitious housing mission of the country. Housing for all, turning dreams into reality.
गरीब, निम्न मध्यम वर्ग और मध्यम वर्ग के लोग घर खरीद सके, इसके लिए प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना के तहत सरकार ने कुछ बड़े फैसले लिए.
With ambitious initiatives like Mukhyamantri Griha Yojana, Gujarat has already emerged as a leading state in implementation of affordable housing projects. So, when the central government's flagship housing program, PMAY, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, was launched, without further delays, Gujarat embarked on the journey of building affordable housing for all. Gujarat decided to evaluate the actual demand for houses by conducting a demand survey in all its urban areas in the year 2016. With the total demand received for 7.64 lakh houses, Gujarat laid down the roadmap and year-wise planning to achieve the same. The state plans to achieve the target set in this roadmap by 2020. The state's strong focus is on all four components of the mission. In situ slum redevelopment. Under this approach, land is used as a resource with private participation, whereby private developers provide up to 30 square meter houses along with 2 rooms, kitchen, toilet, facilities like lift, parking area, etc. Beneficiaries-led construction. Under this component, beneficiaries who have their own land or kacha pakka houses are eligible to get up to 3.50 lakh rupees for new construction, and they are to construct their own houses. Affordable housing in partnership. Under this component, the beneficiaries get to choose from 30 and 40 square meter house options in city area. Beneficiaries are entitled to a grant of 3 lakh rupees provided by the government. So they only have to pay a cost price of 3 lakh rupees or 5.50 lakh rupees depending upon their choice of house.
સરકારશ્રીની આ યોજનાથી અમને ઘણો લાભ થયો છે. અમે આટલા વર્ષો ત્યાં ભાડે રહેતા હતા. અમને આટલી નાની આવકમાં અમને ઘરનું મકાન મળ્યું છે. અમે બહુ જ ખુશ છીએ. કારણ કે અમારી ઓછી આવકમાં અમે બીજે મકાન લઈ નતા શકતા. અમને આ મકાનમાં સગવડ બધી મળી છે. અમે બધા બહુ ખુશ છીએ.
Also under this component, green building concept and energy efficient designs have been adopted. Rainwater harvesting, solar rooftop system, and sewerage treatment plant are among the new features. Private developers who build EWS houses on their own land are also included under AHP.
ભાડે રહેતો હતો તો ત્યાં મને અવારનવાર મકાનના માલિક રોકટોક કરતા હતા. એને બદલે મને ઘરનું ઘર મળ્યું. એ મારા પપ્પાનું પણ સપનું સાકાર થઈ ગયું.
Credit Linked Subsidy Scheme, CLSS. The fourth component of the mission is offering middle income group an opportunity to buy their own home by giving interest subvention on home loan. Government is giving full thrust to credit linked subsidies and has emerged as a front runner on the CLSS component of PMAY. Today, each and every urban town of Gujarat is covered under one or the other vertical of PMAY. The true victory here is of progressive thoughts, prudent planning and proactive governance. Housing for all, turning dreams into reality.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
हिंदी में तो बताओ, इंग्लिश में बताओ।
बेसिकली जो प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना गुजरात में चल रही है उसमें टोटल 2015 से हम लोगों ने डिमांड एसेस किया था 7.62 लाख का. उसके सामने we are giving 9.59,000 dwelling unit. It is almost completed, almost handover. We are using slum redevelopment policy. We are using slum redevelopment policy. We are using मुख्यमंत्री योजना. जो मेन इस कार्यक्रम का मुद्दा है लैंड कैसे कहाँ से निकालें, तो वो लैंड उगी नहीं जा सकती है. तो उसके लिए दो मेरा सजेशन है करने को भी और स्टेट को भी जो मेरे पास रिप्रेजेंटेटिव यहाँ पे कर रहे हैं. बेसिक आप रीडेवलपमेंट जहाँ पे कर रहे हो वो वर्टिकल के अंदर G+2 की डिजाइन में जो था वो आप G+17 तक मैक्सिमम जितना यूटिलाइज हो सकता है वो करिए. पार्सल बी की जो जमीन बनती है उसमें अफोर्डेबल रेट पे आप मकान बना सकते हो. सेकंड स्लम में भी हॉरिजॉन्टल में जो था उस पे पार्सल बी की जमीन बचा के उसमें डेवलप कर सकते हो. सेकंड जो आरएच जोन डिक्लेयर किया है वो अक्रॉस गुजरात में अभी हमने लागू नहीं किया है. अहमदाबाद, सूरत, राजकोट ये 3 सिटी में मेजर चल रहा है. बट पूरे गुजरात में जब टाउन प्लानिंग के नॉर्म्स इंप्लीमेंट हो और तब वहाँ पे जो आरएच जोन डिक्लेयर करते हैं तो नंबर ऑफ लोगों का बैकएंड जो लाइन पड़ा रहा है जो अनयूज है वहाँ पे डेवलपमेंट ग्रोथिंग होगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली हाउसिंग अफोर्डेबल स्टॉक खड़ा कर सकते हो. सो दिस इज माय एक्सपीरियंस फ्रॉम द PMAY. थैंक यू सो मच. थैंक यू.
Thank you, Bhavin. Any questions from the house? I have a friend, John.
I just had a question for Shishir.
Sir,
Yep.
louder.
I had a question for Shishir sir. So with regard to MP, what you have spoken about, in MP as you said there is you in order to provide, identify the beneficiary and provide them housing under PMAY, there was a free of premium pattas for PMAY BLC beneficiaries. So for that I just wanted to ask how do you identify Because there is a lot of people who don't have pattas. So how do you identify the people who can be provided a pattas? And secondly, the payment of, you said in some places the people did not have any documents necessarily. So there you also enable the payment of property taxes to create documents. So can you just explain?
Enable the payment of beneficiary documentation. Beneficiary documentation.
I think I understood this question.
Yeah.
Those who did not have other documents
Okay.
but had property receipts of the past 5 years, 10 years, 14 years, they were allowed to put that as eligible documents for BLC beneficiaries in the first phase. And regarding how do we select the beneficiaries if they do not have, we have separate acts and separate rules. For example, currently there are 2 or 3 acts running. One is Patta Healthy Urban. So there are several rules laid down. The maximum size of the dwelling unit which can be there, the plot which can be there, for how many years he must be in the possession of that particular piece of land. There could be panchnama, etc., electricity receipts, etc. Apart from that, there are revenue circulars also, where if a person has been in possession for, say, supposedly 30 years, 20 years, if he wants to get a title, he can pay a premium of 5% of market value of that land at current rate. So these are some of the schemes where we enable the titling or some land documents to the beneficiary. So these are governed by rules, separate acts and rules, not by discretion.
I can add.
In fact, I wanted to find out whether you label these houses constructed under this PMA.
Yes.
So everybody will be able to identify that this house has been constructed.
It is geotag also.
Is geotag.
Yes, yes. At 5 stages.
Only in the state of Kerala,
Yeah.
they are not geotagging or they are not putting the plan.
They are not.
They are not announcing. So Life Mission is not announced formally that don't do the plan. But people don't want to and they are allowing that. Otherwise, we did a pan-India study with the state missions and we found in all the states that plaque is there except in Kerala where the exception is given to the people. Because they also don't, I mean, it's also sometimes a matter of
Discrimination.
yeah, and individual pride.
Right.
You know that we do not take in subsidy.
Oh.
So only in Kerala that has been done.
But if I may, what was the spirit behind your asking whether we tag them?
In fact, in Kerala, there has been a consensus that it should not be tagged and it should not be labeled. It should not be discriminated. It should not be identified as a charity from the government or from the agency.
I think that's
Right.
not
Yeah,
a bad idea.
But it's an interesting fact that Life Mission, which is the implementing agency, has not made a formal announcement like this.
Yes.
I think it
Yes.
They are not doing a GO or a government order to do this. They are allowing de facto practice of not putting a
No, that's a de facto practice and it
Yes.
has been consumed. It has been.
Yeah, it is allowed.
I may be wrong, but I think it is the government of India norms also. Even in Pradhan Mantri Awas Grami also. You do write the names of the beneficiary, etc. outside the norms.
So,
Once it gets consumed.
because it's a norm under PMAY to do this,
Well,
The,
I'm basically questioning that particular norm. That should not be a good. That should not be a norm.
That can be considered only the norm.
Any other?
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
make a point, especially going by the theme of this conference on land. And also want to have the spotlight on smaller towns which are also urban and which is where we have had beneficiary-led construction, one of the successful verticals under PMAY urban. We have 3 states which have actually approached this land tenure rights differently. By coincidence or by design, I'm not sure. So Gujarat, if you see, has been an underperformer in DLC because they've been strict. They've been gone by the rule book. Madhya Pradesh probably the most liberal in terms of allowing people to actually come into the DLC vertical. One of the star performers of DLC across India is Madhya Pradesh. Of course, next only to Uttar Pradesh because of the scale. Orissa went a mid-ground path where they brought in a scheme to create a tenure right by virtue of Jaga Mission, gave the land right certificate and made people eligible for beneficiary-led construction. So there are three different approaches on land, making it available or making people get into the BLC vertical of PMFI. So I wanted to quickly ask the states on their rationale of why they did what they did, because the three of them did it differently.
I think I'll start with the question.
Why Gujarat has not done it? He wants to know that.
Yes. गुजरात के अंदर बेसिकली नो वेरी वेल गुजरात के अंदर उन्होंने काम भी कनेक्ट किया है टीम के अंदर सो बेसिकली व्हाट हैपेंड इन गुजरात कि पट्टा का सिस्टम गुजरात के अंदर नहीं है बिकॉज ऑफ द लैंड वैल्यूएशन इज हाई सेकंडली रेवेन्यू जैसे कि इन्होंने बताया कि हमारे वहाँ पे लैंड रिकॉर्ड ही नहीं है दैट इज अ मेजर इशू गुजरात के अंदर वो ऑनलाइन सिस्टम है तो जो ऑनर है उसका ट्रांसफरेबल राइट्स मिला है तभी जाके वो 7 बार या दस्तावेज हुआ लीगल पेपर तब वी आर गोइंग टू द स्कीम तो ये गुजरात के अंदर नॉट पॉसिबल है वो टोटल रिस्ट्रिक्ट किया हुआ है कि डॉक्यूमेंट लाओ और स्कीम का लाओ विदाउट डॉक्यूमेंट सॉरी
जिसके पास
नहीं है वो अनएलिजिबल रहेगा वो एएचपी के अंदर जाए दूसरा सीएलएसएस में जाए मैनी ऑप्शन आर यस बट यस बीएलसी में लैंड ऑनरशिप है तभी जाके वी आर प्रोवाइड सेकंड वन रिलैक्सेशन वी आर गिविंग इन एग्रीकल्चर है एग्रीकल्चर लैंड है तो उसमें 10% वो अपना मकान बना सकता है सो वी आर रिलैक्स दिस नॉट पहले नहीं था कि एग्रीकल्चर लैंड है सिटी एरिया में है बट उसके पास मकान नहीं है खुद का तो वहाँ पे 10% कंस्ट्रक्शन कर सकता है तो दैट इज एलिजिबल तो मोस्ट प्रोबेबली पीपल आर कम फ्रॉम द एग्रीकल्चर लैंड इन अर्बन इन स्मॉलर सिटी in bigger city it's not possible because of the 3 lakh income is not matched up to the Ahmedabad proportion or Surat but authority area it is matched and he has come with the land documents together so 150 lakh dwelling unit they are sanctioned in the BSc material and almost are completed so this is a practice in Gujarat.
In the first phase of Pradhan Mantri Awas, I think we have saturated quite a bit of BLC for those beneficiaries also who were landless, etc. That's why in the second phase we are now recalibrating our strategy. We are not providing BLC component benefit to our 4 metropolitan cities where the land premium is very high. Like we are not providing BLC benefits in Indore, Jabalpur, Gwalior and Bhopal. And we are focusing more on AHP this time around and on ARH and AHP in private. Regarding the first phase, I think it was a policy decision to ensure that more people get the benefits of the scheme and only those who were governed and who were eligible by the existing schemes like I said Patta and Dharna Dika, only they got the benefits. And regarding the decision of relaxing some use of documents, please don't get me wrong that those people without which didn't have any documents were allowed the benefits. No, they were just relaxed for certain categories of documents.
You are regarding the 4 sections, the apartments are coming out thanks to central government. That is not a problem. But where lands are available, bigger size. But if not, Jaga Mission like your World Bank theory, 100 Soto, which means the mystery of their capital. Give it Pata, so they will become rich. But if they are after they said very start, very liberal. Possession of your title follows to you. First capture to them. But here something the environment, something the government change. So thousands of Jaga, if you have a granted quota, there is a placement. Where is location? Not found which then bank will come to give loan. So then that plot should be tallying the revenue records, our revenue records the government. So once you plot from Kata, it doesn't match it, only give loan, that is the trading problem. So before election we gave Jaga, what are they are moving on the street.
Okay, we come to the end of this session. I have 2-3 small points. The first point is we got to be liberal with the people at the lowest end of the spectrum. We got to be liberal as Madhya Pradesh presented an excellent review of what they're doing to make sure people have the life. That's the first point. And the second point which Sejal made very, very effectively. Being liberal even to those developers, like VCP funding, income tax benefits, quality sector, GST exemption. I think even those things help in putting a large number of middle class plots in the market for slightly upper class. But I have one very, very special concern. I went to some slum improvement projects as chairman, and I was really, I don't know, this is in the other side. I went to a society where the earlier people were staying, basically the people from the cleaning community, and they had been given a 6 or 7 floor building. There was no lift in the building. There was no light in the building. There was no community space in the building. Imagine you had 500 families living there. Everybody, someday somebody dies, somebody's born, there is some marriage, somebody's coming over. And actually I saw people defecating around the block. I think while we've done very well on cradling subsidy on slightly people who are better off, but we've got to be much more serious and much more effective in dealing with the people who are the lowest end of the scale. They need to be taken care of much, much better. We left a very poor taste. Actually, they said we were better off. And the last part is, even if you give them a multi-story building, designed well and everything is well, I think somebody has to help them managing which is a concern even for, the upper income groups to manage their own. And for a small income group, it's extremely difficult. I think we've got to give them some post-project support on how to manage the project, what needs to be done, how it needs to be taken forward. I think that's very, very critical. And the last point is, in these projects, one of the projects which I saw in Pune, the Magarpatta project, that was an amazing project in getting people's land with their concurrence. Happily they parted with the land because they also shared in the profit over the long term. Whatever profits the builder made, those people shared those profits. I was amazed. This person, Satish Magar, who took me around his township, he said he's got requests from at least tens of villages. कि आप हमारी जमीन ले लीजिए और ऐसा project करें. He's doing another project next to that Magarpatta. I think we've got to work with people where they should get the benefit, not one or two builders for the projects. Thank you, Ripa. I think it gives you some food for thought, but there's some very good people in the house at your and Madhya Pradesh experience. Thank you for sharing the Odisha experience. It is always enlightening to hear you and learn from you. Thank you, Vinodji. Thank you, Robin. And thank you for all of you for coming here.
Thank you.
That's excellent. You got me well. Will you stay for that?